Hi, everyone. Welcome to WPLN and DDC's presentation today. We are going to be discussing cybersecurity essentials. And this is a very special webinar for me today because I work with both of the amazing nonprofits that are doing this today. So I am the Fellows Manager for the Women's Public Leadership Network and focus on all center right outreach for defending digital campaigns. So get to talk with both the nonprofits today, and hopefully it's a great conversation. So I want to first introduce our guest today, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit about WPLN and really get into our conversation about cybersecurity because it is Cybersecurity Awareness Month this month. And hopefully all of our viewers get a lot out of it and can better protect themselves. So Michael, I'll shoot it over to you to give an introduction of yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. And obviously a pleasure for me to be interviewed by you today. That's an interesting, changing of chairs. So
Yeah.
I'm Michael Kaiser. I'm the president and CEO of Defending Digital Campaigns. I think we'll talk a little bit later about how we all came about and all those things. Just say that I'm really thrilled to be here talking to this audience today. And I just have to make a little plug for Cybersecurity Awareness Month because my former job was executive director of the National Cybersecurity Alliance, which are the purveyors of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So a double whammy for me here today, and I'm just thrilled to be here with you.
Exactly. You created it. Okay, so just a reminder on the front of WPLN, Women's Public Leadership Network. If you are a new viewer of ours, or if you've been a supporter for a long time, we are a 501c3 nonpartisan nonprofit. And our mission is really just to educate, organize, and inspire center-right women to seek public office at every level across the US. And not only that, but to be effective leaders when they get there. So in order to do this, we have free online programming like today. We have in-person convenings like our summit every year. And then we also have our state partner network. So that's kind of our secret sauce. It's our nationwide network of independent nonprofits across the country. And we're all just about building pipelines for women to be able to get the support that they need to seek public office. So very similarly, DDC is 501c4, but a nonprofit and a nonpartisan nonprofit at that. So Michael, I think this lends itself to just kind of ask and tell the audience like what DDC is, how Defending Digital Campaigns was created, and really why.
Yeah, so, quite briefly, our mission is really to protect campaigns by providing cybersecurity tools and information and making sure that they get those tools up and running. We were founded really out of, everybody knows what happens in 2016, right? There was some cybersecurity activity, though people may not remember this. In fact, and Matt Rhodes, who's on our board, reminds us all the time that actually Mitt Romney's campaign was compromised by the Chinese in 2012. And so the issues around cybersecurity go back a long way in the political sector. And a bunch of people got together at Harvard. We're not associated with Harvard in any way after 2016. And they did some work. And those folks were folks like, Matt Rhodes, also, Robbie Mook, who had been Hillary's campaign manager, some folks, former government like Debbie Plunkett, who'd been the cybersecurity official at the NSA, came together to look at this issue and develop some playbooks around security for campaigns, security for election officials. When they came out of that process, they had a playbook, looks great. Campaign should be putting tools in place, right? Like everybody, it's pretty obvious. Like,
Obviously.
People got to do this, right? So then it was like full stop. Like, yeah, campaigns aren't going to buy this stuff, and they're not going to pay for it. Let's just be honest. And so they went to the Federal Election Commission, and they said, look, this is a national security issue, right? We can't have outside interference in our campaigns, and campaigns don't have the money and don't have the information even really about what they're supposed to be doing. And so we need to address that. And the FEC agreed. And they agreed that DDC could be stood up and DDC could be a 501c4 that behaves like a C3. That's what we do, right? We act like a public charity, but we're a C4. Right. And that's the way I always think of us more of a C3 than a C4 in all reality.
Yeah.
And that's the way we work. We're nonpartisan, we're non-aligned, we're here to help everybody. We're here to make sure that everyone has access to the information, everyone has access to the tools, that we are beating the drum for better cybersecurity across the whole political sector, encouraging vendors to be better at it, everyone. Like, that's really our job, right? To be the kind of voice for cybersecurity in this sector. And so obviously the FEC only rules for federal campaigns. So the national committees, the, presidential, House, Senate, and portions of the state party are all eligible for us. But we've been working to move down ballot as well. So we have to get similar approvals in states. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. But, so just, there's always that Americans campaign finance rules are very local.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you said, we're focused, the FEC rules over the federal campaigns, but I think for a lot of listeners on this call, they're probably seeking office or even, public appointments in the state. So just know that we are actively working on this. We are approved in a few states that we can talk about with plans to do more. But also, I think anything that we do at DDC can apply really to anyone. And we hope to kind of help people use the tools that are already there for them. And that's what we kind of hope to help people use their tools more efficiently and more safely. So no matter where you're at today, if you're part of a campaign or you're part of a vendor or, at another nonprofit or, an advocacy group, I hope that, what we kind of talked about today will be beneficial to you. And talking about campaigns and why DDC was so important to be founded, I hear you talk a lot about the word high risk users and how people that work on campaigns or people just even tangentially part of a campaign or part of the political sector, political world are high risk users. So can you kind of explain what that means and kind of why we view them in this way?
Yeah. This is really actually an important concept that people who work in the political sector, and I think you've defined it a bit. I mean, the political sector really, or is anybody involved in a campaign in any way, right? It could be obviously the candidate, campaign staffers, volunteers, working directly on the campaign. Certainly, are included in this group, as well as friends and associates, family members of the campaigns, right? High school friends that are raising money for you as a candidate, all these people who are around this very, squishy perimetered enterprise are what we consider to be high risk. And let's explain what that means. So every computer user, all of us, and we're all computer users, we're on tech right now, right, face a certain level of risk in this environment, right? We probably mostly from cyber criminals, right? There are people out there trying to steal our credit card numbers, trying to get our personal information, conducting identity theft and those kinds of things. We're all kind of pretty well aware of that, right? And
Right.
and I think we, just like, there are risks when you go out to drive your car. There's a risk when you go out on the road. I mean, there are risks out there, right? We have to, do what we can to address them. However, in this space, there are higher risks, and those risks revolve around another layers of bad actors. So you obviously have cyber criminals in the political space. We have known of campaigns that have had money stolen through very traditional spear phishing,
Yep.
fake invoice campaigns. Happens. But also you have nation states who are after folks in this space. You have hacktivists, people who just disagree with you as as a candidate, as your positions, as the policies that you might promulgate for your community. So you have additional bad actors, which increase your risk. The other way that your risk increases is that the biggest vulnerability is actually people, right? So if I'm going to go after a campaign, maybe I'm going to go after, the teenage gaming son of the candidate who's on these forums all day long, right? And, just doing their stuff, but they may be vulnerable in that way. Or someone, and this was what happened, in this election cycle, the Iranians, spearphished both presidential campaigns, right? That's what they did. They went after people associated with the campaign. They might have been on the campaign. They might have been a trusted advisor. They could be someone who just, that's puts everybody in this space at risk. And so you are at higher risk, which requires you to do more to be secure.
Absolutely. And like we obviously started out with the Women's Public Leadership Network, do you find at all that there's any research or in the work that you've done that, women in the space or running or thinking of running for office are more at risk? And not to scare anyone or anything, but just, kind of what are some stats on that, or what have you found in regards to that?
Yeah. So DDC is not what we'd call a FUD organization. In cybersecurity, there's a lot of people that do fear, uncertainty, and doubt as like a motivator.
Right.
That's not the way we roll because I don't think that actually is helpful. But I do think that what's interesting about the political sector, and I came from more traditional cybersecurity, right? And the things I was just talking about are like traditional cybersecurity risk factors. But there are political risk factors. And I don't think there's any doubt that gender can be a risk factor that might increase your risk even more, right?
Right.
And we just have to be honest. I mean, this United States of America, I don't have any stats, but there are places where people might be hostile towards a candidate because of their gender, right? I mean, I think that that's, potential. It doesn't mean every single woman who runs for office is at higher risk. And this is really actually an important point. You have to evaluate that from your own perspective, right? Are you breaking ground in a place where, there's never been a woman elected to this position, right? And some people might not like that. And, that's just the tenor of your community, right? That's not true in all communities in the United States, but it could be true in some, could be true in yours. Are there other factors attached to that? It's not only, and I would say it's not only gender based, because there could be, people that have, religious beliefs, or, there are other factors in the United States that could lead to some hostility around your candidacy, and that could increase your risk. However, your risk could increase for other reasons too, not related to gender. And it could be that it's just a really close race, right? And it's 50-50, and like everything counts. And so that could increase your risk too. So I don't want to think, but we do know, and I think we see, that there are maybe different kinds of risks sometimes for
Yeah,
women.
that's what I was gonna ask. Like, is there anything unique to women, that they should be aware of that's different than just a general?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and there's not a ton of information on this, but I think we've seen, I don't know if anybody can go back and look. There was a really fantastic article in the New York Times about this young woman who was elected to the city council. I can't remember the city in Florida,
Okay.
who really ended up, it was actually revenge porn, right? They used artificial intelligence to make, pornography about her. And I think that, women are unfortunately probably more susceptible to that than men. So there may be efforts to, try and, make and show women in a different light than men might be shown. And I think that is unfortunately something that people have to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think we also often talk about, at DEC, we talk about the importance of, protecting the family around the candidate as well, and making sure that not only the campaign team, but that the family is doing the right precautions as well, right? And I think something that we find at WPLN a lot of times is that the family aspect can be almost a detraction in a woman being able to step up and run, because she's thinking about all the other things that maybe she has going on. So I think it's just an important reminder of this like influx of, it's not that your family is going to be more at risk because you're a woman, but it's just putting the importance on making sure that all the protections you're putting on yourself, you're also putting around your family.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And I think if you feel like, like I said, not everybody's automatic. I mean, you're automatically at higher risk, so you should be concerned about the security of your family just because you're running
Right.
for office. That's a baseline. If you feel that you're at extraordinary risk, right, then you do need to focus in a little bit more on your family and make sure. And it's because people are the entry points, right?
Exactly.
That's really the issue here. It's like, your child, your spouse, your uncle, right? I mean, it's not just like your, people who are like, you're living under your roof. Of course, you could have an extended family as well, but it's just, it's all the people around you, right? And politics is about making connections with people.
Right.
And so politicians are connected with lots of people, and those people, the more they're connected with you, the more they become a target.
Right. And it's not necessarily, again, we don't want to be making people fearful. It's more that they see people around you as a vulnerability point, to be able to gain access to your accounts, and then go from there. So talking about, we kind of talked about the risk and talked specifically about women, but let's talk broadly to anyone watching, like what are the risks that exist out there, and kind of maybe what are the top 3 risks that exist. And obviously we're coming up very closely to election day, and as we know, risk really increases up to election day. So let's kind of dive into that side of the conversation and figure out and tell everyone what the risks are, and then we can move on to how to protect themselves from it.
Yeah. So if you're starting a campaign, right, and you are setting yourselves up, I think the areas where you're going to have the most risk are going to be in the domain that you use, right? You know, it's Michael for Congress, right? I've set up a domain. I've got people getting email addresses. I've got, you know, documents being created and shared. So you have that. You're going to have, in all likelihood, a web presence in some way, shape, or form, a website, right? So that is a piece of internet real estate that could be at risk. And then you're going to have what activities that you do, like on social, for example, right? So you have these different worlds that you operate in a campaign, and they're interconnected, but they also operate in a different risk profiles with different things that you need to do to protect them, although there's some similarities across those. So those are the three kind of domains of risk, I think, that a campaign starting up would want to be sure that they're doing correctly as they get going.
Yeah. So the three buckets, we're talking about your accounts, your website, both your email and your social media. So what are kind of the simple actions that they can take on each of these three things to make sure that they're being protected? Because I think a lot of times everyone thinks cybersecurity, like either A, it's not going to happen to me, or B, you know, we all kind of see some of the phishing emails that come through and we can recognize them, and or we're just too lazy to do multi-factor authentication, right? So what I love about DDC is that we preach how easy it is to get some of these things set up. So what are the simple ways that everyone can protect these three modules that you're talking about?
Not only do we preach easy, we preach free,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So, like, I like free, and I just want to remind people that there are an amazing amount of tools. No matter what you're using, there are tools inside those platforms to protect you that you don't have to pay additional
Mhm.
for. So just like, I never want cost to be a barrier to better security. If you're eligible, of course, there's more things we can do, but that shouldn't. There's plenty you can do on your own.
But on the
Just,
free, we're talking what? Browser, password managers.
yeah, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
go through a couple of
Yeah,
them.
let's go through them. Okay.
Like, if, for example, if you're you know, a campaign and you're running on Microsoft, they have M365 for campaigns, which is
Mhm.
a pre-configured securely form of their core product. They have Account Guard, which is an advanced protection program, which actually is available to people beyond campaigns, to political
Mhm.
organizations as well, which is gets you into a group of people that get more scrutinized, not in a bad way, but scrutinized around security. And, you know, knowing the risks that are out there, they can help defend against risks that they see in the larger ether and the larger internet. If you're a workspace user in Google, they have something called Account Security Fundamentals Workspace for Campaigns, which is a push of a button, 26 security settings set into your campaign from the get-go that include things like turning on MFA, include things like good password length, you know, and other kinds of security settings that you would have to, if you're not an admin in Google, like, you would never figure out,
Right.
right? Like, one thing, and it's free.
So they're
They
kind of just pre-configuring it for anybody, any user of their G Suite. They're turning all these things on so that no one has the option to not turn on MFA, for
Exactly.
example.
You add Julia at, you know, Michael for Congress, and she's going to be subject to MFA and all those things
Yeah.
from right from the get-go. So that's great. That's right. And then they also, Google has their own advanced protection program, which you can sign up for, and that requires using either, we can talk about this a little bit later, a passkey or security key. But that puts you in again another set of higher level protections, because, like, Google and Microsoft, great examples, they are the purveyors of this information about higher risk. They
Right.
know it, right? Because they see the attacks that are happening on people and organizations. And they would say that the two highest risk groups of people in the world are journalists and people that work around campaigns and political candidates.
Yeah.
So that's all free. You can do that. There's for your website, there's something called Cloudflare. There's a free product. We have another product for campaigns, but Google has Project Shield. They're both of them to prevent DDoS attacks. DDoS are these distributed denial of service attacks. So they're basically flood the zone till your website goes down. And by the way, they're extremely common. They're very easy to launch. And we've already seen, this sector can't name names, but we've seen quite a few of them already that have happened in this last part of the campaign. So that would take care of your website and your your core domain. And then, on social, there's a bunch of different things you can do. Meta has their version of advanced protection that protects Facebook and Instagram, and you can get that through being nominated. We can nominate people for that. And, then you can just make sure you use core protections on things like, X and others. Make sure you use their MFA, their best form of MFA. If they allow a key or a pass key, that's what you want to use. So those are all like basic things. They're not very hard to do. And they're all available.
Awesome. And if you have questions on any of those free tools, we'll put up a link to our website with some free tools for organizations that we have. But you can always also email either of us, and we'll put up the email address soon, and ask any questions about that. So kind of I heard you say the best form of multi-factor authentication. So let's talk about that. I think everybody at this point understands what multi-factor authentication is on, you're getting the text to your cell phone, you're getting the email with the code, you're maybe getting a push notification. But really that's not the best use. And in my personal opinion, think it's actually a time suck, and there's something even better out there. So let's tell the people what that is.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, MFA is unfortunately a generic term for every single form of multi-factor authentication that's out there. And it's true, they're not all created equal. And if you're you already know you're a high-risk user, right? So now you need to understand that you need the best and most secure forms of MFA. The good news is that there are some really great, easy to use forms of MFA right now that are becoming more broadly available. And those are called passkeys. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about those in a second, but let me just tell you that obviously multi-factor authentication is something that something that you have, or something that you are, right? It's that's what it is, right? So it's a combination of those factors. And like, if you're just getting an SMS text to your phone, that is not secure anymore.
Right.
That's pretty much
be hacked by the person.
Yeah, somebody can get in between. Somebody gets your email address and they're like, "Oh, would you like to read? Oh, we can send you a text to your email or your phone." And well, they have your email, so they just say, "Send it to my email." So I mean, so that we know is not good, especially for high risk users, right? So you need something more. The two highest forms of multi-factor authentication are security keys, which are a physical key which you plug into your computer from Yubico or a Google, and you touch it when you log in. And the other one is something called a pass key. And you may have actually seen these, because now sometimes when you log into an account, they'll be like, "Would you like to add a pass key?"
Yeah, I'm getting it on a lot of websites now.
Well, you're like, "Well, I don't know what the heck is a pass key." I mean, I can be critical of industry. I love industry. We work with them, but I have to say they have not done the best job here. What a pass key is a digital credential. It's basically a little snippet of encrypted code that actually resides on your device. And so when you go to your laptop and you log in with your PIN, or if you have a biometric like a finger or a face scan, that's factor one. When you go to log into your account, it looks for the pass key. It finds the encrypted code. It has a key on the other side that reads that and said, "Oh yeah, this is Michael's device. Michael's logged into this device. I can see that. And now he's trying to get into this service. And so, yeah, I'm going to let him in with this pass key." Guess what? There's no password. It's passwordless. It's highest security available without a password, right? Yeah. So, and this is why we're so hot on these. We think passkeys are great. You should be using them wherever they are offered. They are super easy. You can save them in password managers. There's a lot of ways to manage them. We don't have to go into gory details about that, but they're really great.
Yeah, and I think we'll link to a page on Passkeys, but right now, we've really been talking to the world, really, who will listen to us, about forgetting passwords, right? Kind of the play on forget passwords, but really passwords aren't secure. So we are hoping more people will employ passkeys. And I think I've noticed them on a lot of my applications I use day to day, obviously Gmail and Microsoft, as I use both for different things. Anything, with your Apple ID, you can use the passkey with. Twitter, I believe, just rolled it out recently. And anyone else I'm kind of missing on like the mainstream?
Well, PayPal does
PayPal.
Passkeys.
Yeah.
Any
Yep.
eBay users out there, they use Passkeys. There's a lot. I mean, understand this too. I think this is sort of the essence of what you're getting at. Passkeys is not a product that someone developed to sell.
Right.
Passkeys is a industry standard of multi-factor authentication. So the idea and the way that Passkeys were created by a group called the FIDO Alliance, which is an industry group. So these are created by industry to make the internet more secure. So you can't buy a passkey, they're given to you for free. And the goal is to get more and more companies to adopt passkeys and more people to adopt passkeys. And they call them virtually unphishable. And since phishing is kind of the core, right? That's that's how people compromise people, by getting them to share credentials. You can't really share a passkey. Someone can't steal your passkey. They have to have that multi-way of getting to the passkey before the service is turned on. So it's really, it's highly secure, super easy, it's free, and it's available. There's no.
Well, I think a lot of the, many of the risks that or the threats that we've seen actually happen this cycle, not only on the presidential level, but, during primary campaigns, we've seen, I know we talked about that earlier, but, the ability to steal money from a campaign, the ability to just gain access to their privileged information and then share it. All of these are pretty much avoidable if your campaign, the people around you are employing things like security keys and pass keys.
Yeah, well, there's an adage in cybersecurity that if you do the fundamentals, if you do the basics, if you do the basic cyber hygiene, you wipe out like 80% of the risk.
Right.
Right.
And
By doing these easy things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, yes, like if you're getting a security key, there is a cost to that unless you're eligible through DDC. But with passkeys, like you mentioned, with the free Cloudflare, with these free programs through Microsoft and Google, all of these things are free. So anybody can be taking advantage of them. And, we can help you employ them or get them set up. So please feel free to reach out. But
Let me just make one little point about that, Julie, because I think this is important. When I was the executive director of the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and you'll see it if you look at what goes on still, we always just wagged our finger at people and said, do this, do this, do this. But we never, ever explained to people how to do any of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's totally true, but generally true. Here, I have had a different approach. And if you go to our defendcampaigns.org/resources, that is a knowledge base that does have step-in-step instructions. It will show you how to get some of these products turned on, right? One by one, it'll explain them in more depth. And so we really are committed to helping you through this journey in a way that's contextually relevant to you as a campaigner or a candidate or in the political sector as an organization. So it's around what you face. It's not just like, oh, I searched for passkeys and got 9,000 articles and I have no idea which one is correct, right? We have done it so that you can, be on your way, get it done and be on your way.
Exactly. And I think we talked, obviously about people in the political sector, but I think we touched on it a bit, but, we talk a lot about DGC, about the third party risk of vendors that are involved. And I think a lot of people who are supporters of WPLN, or are in this field fall into that category of someone who's maybe at a data firm or at a digital firm, and serving campaigns. And we just want to put a point of emphasis that, it really is kind of the onus is on you to make sure that you're not one of those point of vulnerabilities to a campaign, because a lot of the incidents we've seen, especially talking about cyber criminal aspect, has been, a point of entry through a vendor. So we want to make sure that you guys take this all very seriously as well, if there are people watching or listening that fall into that category.
Well, let me just add to that. Let's really quickly here. Like, think of yourself, if you're like an advocacy firm, a digital firm, you're in this space, you're a more permanent part of the infrastructure around campaigns.
Totally.
Right? And so you have a responsibility to protect yourself, to protect your clients. And understand that the campaigns are always going to be a little mushier, going to be a little, they're here today, they're gone tomorrow. The more you do to secure yourself, the more you're actually securing your customers, right? And yes, you could be the entry point, and we see these fake invoices. If you're a digital firm selling ads and someone hacks you and they send an invoice to your client saying, pay this today and we'll give you a discount or whatever, right? Like, you could be but if they're just connecting to you and they're connecting to you securely, and you're secure on your side, you've created this more security around everyone. And that really is part of what has to happen in this space in order to secure campaigns.
Yeah. Oh, and I want to say I want to bring up one more free and just important resource, I think, because before you taught me about it, I always thought this was like some sort of scam from from the internet. So talk a little bit just quickly about federated logins. Because I think that's an important point and something we all run across very often. And everyone I've told about this is like, oh, I didn't know that was something we were supposed to do.
Yeah. So yeah, there are scams on the internet. That's great.
I just thought, oh, they want my data, so I'm not going to do that. And I was really missing out on a security aspect with that.
So you've probably been out there, have been surfing going to a site for the first time, and it'll say, sign in with Apple, sign in with Microsoft, sign in with Google. And you're like, well, should I do that? And the answer to that question is 100% yes. If you have done the strongest credential protection on the site. So if you're a high risk user and you're using Gmail and you've turned on Google's APP, which is their highest form of protection, right? And that has to be done with a passkey or a security key. And then you go to a new site and you log in with your Gmail credential, you have brought that protection with you. Yeah. And in a lot of cases, the sites that you're going to may not have as high a form of protection as you're getting on your accounts. And this could be for Microsoft and Apple as well. They don't share a lot of information. I think Google shares obviously your email address, because that, and maybe your photo, if you have one in your email, in your Gmail, which I don't. And that's kind of it. There's no other information that gets shared really. So it's not like there's a lot of personal information sharing going. It was really originally designed as a concept to take out the friction from people signing up for services. But, we really stumbled upon this as this is a huge security factor, because if I have a campaign and I tell all my staff, you're got to use Google's APP and everybody's on it. And then I say, whenever you do anything on behalf of the campaign, log on with a credential that like a Google or a Microsoft credential, then I've reduced them creating accounts, creating bad passwords, then they leave, no one can get in. I mean, it's it really is.
Well, you're opening it up to just another password being, leaked in a data leak, and then that password's probably being used on your Gmail, and then you've given hackers access to your data. So yeah, I find it on things like Target or Etsy or really any online shopping that doesn't have MFA. Always I'm using that to create my account with them so that it's not another password out there.
Yeah, and even good for one time. So if you're going to decide, I'm only going to do this once here, so you don't have to go through the account creation process. Right, I'm just going to do this today. Boom, and I'm done. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, what about what if someone is successful in getting into a campaign or gaining access to an account on social media or in their email or something? So, now what? Now what do they do? What should campaigns kind of have set up in order to act quickly if something like this were to happen?
Yeah, unfortunately, cyber incidents can happen. They're not always, we always think, the Russians are coming, Chinese are coming, the Iranians are coming. It's not always that. Sometimes it's a mistake. Sometimes, people click on things they shouldn't. Sometimes, a spreadsheet gets sent to the wrong people, right? Attached to an email. So just always remember that there are different kinds of cyber incidents. Really, cyber incident response is about just giving it some thought ahead of time. If you're an organization, you may have a more organized cyber incident plan. You may have actually met with, people internally and come up with a plan, to figure out what you're going to do. But if you're a campaign on the run, just having given some thought. The elements of a cyber incident response can include having some leadership. So who's going to be involved in that response? Just think about that. You probably might have a comms issue. You definitely want who's ever in charge, the decision maker. You're going to need some IT or cyber support, to remedy the situation. Who are those people? Do I have their, everybody together, at least in my head, what they're going to be? Do I understand, that I guess, I guess I should really, the way I would normally preface this, and I should have, is that cybersecurity is about resistance, obviously prevention, and resilience. So think about it as a continuity of operations plan. We've all just watched a couple of natural disasters. Like if you're a candidate in Florida, you need to be thinking about what if there's a hurricane, 4 weeks before the election and I have to close down the headquarters because like we've been evacuated. Right. How do I continue operations? That's how you respond to a cyber incident. How do I continue operations? If I have ransomware and I can't use the computers we normally use, what would I do? Mm-hmm. Do I buy new ones? Do I have someone else says I can borrow? Those kinds of things. Can I do things on paper that, could I take a donation on paper if somebody wanted to call and give me one instead of like using a form on because my website's not available, right? So just thinking about continuity of operations and bouncing back as quickly as possible, because for a campaign, especially at this late stage, which is when these attacks are most likely to happen, right, a day is like a month, right? Like you lose a day, you lose a month, right? So you've got to have that continuity of operations.
Especially if your website goes down and no one can donate to your campaign, or if you have a DDoS attack in the middle, maybe your candidate just went viral on Twitter for something that they said, and you have a DDoS attack and no one can donate. Just people don't think about all the different situations in which it would really take it down. Yeah. So
or your website has the polling places and the polling times, right? And that's where people think, oh, I'll just go to Julia's website to find out where I vote and when I vote, right? Obviously there are other places they can get that, but your supporters, right, are going to rally around you and your web properties, especially as it gets close to election day.
Absolutely, and I think we at DDC want to support campaigns in this way. If there is something that happens and you don't know who to turn to, you can feel free to reach out to us again, and we can help you try to mitigate some of these things with some of these tech companies if you don't have someone there to reach out to. But yeah, what have we missed, Michael, and kind of how do we want to start wrapping this up for the audience?
I guess I don't know. I feel like we covered a lot of good ground. You've done an excellent job, getting all this out of me. So thank you for that. I think what I want to be the takeaway here is you don't have to do this all at once, right? But do something. If you're going to do anything today after this, watching this, go turn on a passkey.
For sure.
On a core account. Turn it on Gmail, right? Do that. You've already just escalated your cybersecurity enormously, right? So do these small things, do them soon, don't wait. Just remind people too that we're really open. Our goal, yes, we have these federal eligibilities and these states. By the way, we're approved in,
oh yes, we didn't talk about that.
Virginia, Michigan, and Ohio to go down ballot.
Yes. Georgia, Michigan, Ohio, and Virginia. So if you are a candidate in any of those states, or you're thinking about running in those 4 states, we'd love to talk to you.
And also, I would just make a call out if you're like WPLN, if you work for an organization that recruits and trains candidates in any way, shape, or form, we really want to work with you. Ultimately, we got to get this information to everybody. It would be great if campaigns, as they're being stood up, have a better framework around security. We have done a lot of trainings with folks like WPLN and others who train and recruit candidates to try and infuse this culture of cybersecurity, into the early stages. Like someone's running for office, they adopt cybersecurity today, then they run, typically they run for one office, they might run for another and another and another, and someday president.
That's the pipeline we're trying to build.
Well, exactly. So let's get cybersecurity infused in that pipeline as early as possible and create that culture of cybersecurity so that, you set up your campaign. It's like, hey, we're doing everything we're supposed to, right? And know that this changes over time. So come check with us, right? When I started in 2020 doing this, there were no passkeys available. Passkeys just became available for things like really during this cycle. They've been out there kind of, but like highly available January, February, March, April. I think Google just added them to APP like a month ago or 2 months ago. So things change and maybe get easier and better. So don't hesitate to check in.
Absolutely. But yes, so thank you, everyone. And I hope that everyone who watches this in the future finds this really beneficial. But again, my email is just julia@defendcampaigns.org. So if you have any questions about any of this, or if you know me from WPLN or Caitlin, just feel free to reach out and we'll get you connected and we'll get you some help. But again, just want to, remind everybody that these 16 days or no, 20 days is it until
21.
election day. And yes, the risk is as high as it will ever be up until then. So make sure when you log out of here to do some of the core things that we discuss. And if you have trouble onboarding them, just feel free to reach out. So Michael, I think that's it, unless there's anything else you want to leave for the group, but want to thank you again for being a part of it today.
Well, thank you for having me in. I really appreciate it. And thank you for helping us spread the word about, this really important effort to protect this very fragile part of our democracy, right? The marketplace of ideas, which is I like to think of campaigns.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.